So I've recently had the opportunity to pick up the 16-55 2.8 by Fuji, and I've paired it with my XH2S, and it's one of those pairings that just go hand in hand. It's like a match made in heaven. I'm gonna go ahead and go over the reasons I love this lens, the reasons other people might not like this lens. For me personally, it's definitely a lens that I am keeping, and a lens that is probably gonna be on my camera 99% of the time. Now, first off, it's a 16-55 focal length. So that means you could go from super wide landscape shots to super tight entry-level telephoto shots. So that would be a 24-82 equivalent. And I know for most people, the 24-70 is one of those special lenses that doesn't leave your full frame camera. So of course, naturally, the 16-55 is going to be that for APS-C shooters shooting on Fuji. Everybody on YouTube is saying that, or was saying, because this lens came out quite a bit ago. I actually bought it used for $800. I thought that was a steal. But everybody that talks about this lens talks about how sharp it is, and I don't think you can truly appreciate how sharp it truly is until you have this lens in hand. This lens is by far probably the second sharpest Fuji lens we own, and we own the old 56 1.2 by Fuji, which is insanely sharp. Unfortunately, the autofocus on that thing sucks, which brings me to my next point: the autofocus. The autofocus on this lens is phenomenal. Everybody, when the XH2S came out, was saying how it's pretty much on par with Canon and Sony, and for me, I thought it was really improved compared to the XT3, but I didn't see it being close to the A7S III, the A7 IV, the R5, or anything in the Canon or Sony lineup. But paired with this lens, this camera is on par with those lenses and with that autofocus system. Lastly, of course, this lens is weather resistant, so I feel confident shooting with this lens in just about any weather condition. I can bring it on a corporate gig and I know I'll be fine. I could bring it on a wedding and I know I'll be fine. I could bring it just to have fun and I'll know I'll be fine. Especially living in a city like New Orleans, having that as a fail-safe, let's say, is just an amazing thing to have. With all that being said, I can definitely see how someone might not want to have this lens. So let me list a few cons that I can see people not liking about this lens. First off, let's start off with the size of this lens. For me, it's not a huge deal because paired with the XH2S, which is already a beefy camera, this lens just works. It is a bigger lens. It does feel like maybe like a DSLR type lens or even a full frame lens, even though I'm shooting on an APS-C. But the XH2S also has a very beefy body, almost like if it was a full frame camera. So yeah, the weight and the size are definitely can be considered a con. I think for me, it's fine. I think it brings balance. I think the weight of it is something that helps me stabilize my footage when I'm filming freehand. So I look at it as a plus, but I can definitely see if somebody maybe on the XT5 is shooting with it, which is a lighter camera, even lighter than the XT3, I can see it being a con. The biggest con, I think, for me is it shifts in brightness. So when you zoom in, the lens will shift in brightness. It will get a little brighter, even though it's a constant 2.8 aperture. That isn't a huge con for me because I'll never think to use this lens or the shots that it gets zooming in. And my personal work is the only time I'll use it. I won't ever use like a zooming in shot on a wedding or a corporate gig. And moving on, I think the next thing would be Josh sucks ass. And
I got them boys working on these hills. Watch this second leg. I don't want to admit it. The second leg about to bust they ass.
And then lastly, I think even though it is a 2.8 constant aperture, which I briefly touched on. If you are shooting on a camera like the XT3 or a camera that just isn't amazing in low light, I can see it being a con. Because at 2.8 in dark conditions, it's just not going to provide the image that you might like. For me, it isn't a huge deal because the XH2S does go up to, I want to say 4,000, 6,400 comfortably. While it might show a little bit of noise, it's not anything you can't get rid of, or some people might even like it because Fuji's noise is, of course, something that is more natural on the image, and it isn't as jarring as some of these other companies. And just to wrap things up, I think overall for me, it's one of these lenses that isn't going to be coming off of my camera. It's going to be staying on, and I know that I'm going to enjoy it. I know I'm going to love it. The stuff that I've already gotten with it in 6K are just insane. I'm a big on sharpness. I know a lot of people aren't that big on it and they want this like cinematic, soft looking stuff. I add my softness in post, but I like seeing it straight out of camera and how sharp it is. That's pretty much it. It's a great lens. I love it. There's not much more I can say about it.